Hey guys, so every now and again I get reminded why I'm an income investor. So on Medium, I came across this article 18 smart ways to make an extra $50 a day. And if we go through the article, they're not like terrible ways. You can participate in research, online paid surveys, side gigs like Instacart, swag bucks, and we even have teaching English online. But the reason why I'm highlighting this article is because we've all been in that situation before that we seek out information, articles like this, because we simply don't have enough money to cover the bills. And that's an awful, desperate, vulnerable situation to be in. And unfortunately, tons of people are perpetually in this situation, and I feel really bad for them. And that's why the popularity of articles like this are so widespread. But personally, in order to make sure that I'm never this desperate, that's why I am an income investor. Now, don't get me wrong, income investing isn't a silver bullet. It's hard, and it takes a long time to have a meaningful amount of income. And I'm currently at the beginning of my journey. I have 32,000 bucks, and you can see that in total I've earned $1,500 in pure passive dividend income. Now, I do keep track of my monthly passive investment income, and it's currently sitting around $200, trending upwards. And for myself personally, the ultimate goal of this entire investment account is to give me financial freedom. That's why it's called Freedom Fund. So ideally, one day in the semi-near future, this portfolio would generate me enough monthly income in order to cover at least my basic living expenses. So that way I'm guaranteed to never again be in the situation that I'm desperate and I'm trying to find ways to make a quick dollar. Again, it's not easy. The market can be very volatile along the way, and it takes a long time to build up the amount of value needed to generate that kind of cash. But the way I view it, it's all about being deliberate in the way that you live life and identifying what you value. And personally, I value financial security and having a passive stream of income that I can tap into at any given time, regardless of what's going on in my life. And to give you guys a one-to-one comparison, let's quickly calculate how much you need to invest in order to generate $50 per day in passive dividend income. So $50 times 30 days equals a monthly income of $1,500. Annualized, that's a goal amount of $18,000 per year in this passive dividend income. Now, if we use an income generative asset like JEPI, they have a yield of 9% at the current moment. So $18,000 divided by 0.09 equals a target value of $200,000 invested in JEPI in order to generate you that $50 a day in passive investment income. Okay, now moving on, I do have a question I want to ask you guys about my portfolio setup and management. So I haven't made any changes to this portfolio in quite a while, and that's mostly because we're going through a downturn, and just out of principle, I don't make any rash decisions during times like this. But in terms of my portfolio structure and my philosophy here, you can kind of see what I'm trying to do. So my biggest holding, or soon to be biggest holding, is the S&P 500 with covered calls over half of it. This gives me a great blend of the growth of the US stock market along with current high levels of monthly income. And then in addition to that, as a complement, I have income assets and dedicated growth assets. So if I come over here and draw out my current portfolio, it looks something like this. So I have XYLG as the foundation, and then I have two separate branches. The income side consists of JEPI and Divo. And currently my growth side is a little bit messy, but ultimately I want it to look like this. So BST, and then a dedicated equity ETF like VUG, which is large cap growth. So this is the current iteration of my portfolio, and I like it a lot. I'm a huge fan of it. I especially like how during this most recent downturn in 2022, I can see how both halves of my portfolio perform, and as one side goes down, I can reinvest my dividends and new deposits in that half to get better future returns. But as mentioned, I do have some potential changes that I'm considering, and let me draw them out for you right now. So within option 1, of course, we're going to keep XYLG, but when it comes to the individual branches, I'm thinking about adding more equity. So on this side, it would be something like SCHD, in addition to JEPI and DIVA, which already do have quite a bit of equity exposure to them. They're hybrid ETFs. And then on the growth side, I'm thinking about adding JEPQ, which is the sister ETF to JEPI, but on the NASDAQ 100. I would keep BST, because in the same way that JEPQ is a sister ETF to JEPI, BST is kind of the growth version of DIVO. And then I would still have my dedicated equity growth fund. So in comparison to my current portfolio, it's very similar, the same basic methodology, but I do add some complexity and a few additional holdings. So that brings us to option 2. Again, we have XYLG as the constant, but the two branches are going to be a little bit different. So in option 2, I'm considering simplifying my portfolio by dropping one of the hybrid covered call ETFs and instead having a pure equity play. I like how this keeps the simplicity of the portfolio, but a huge downside is I have to decide which of my covered call funds I want to sell, and to be honest, I really don't want to sell any of them. And that brings us to the final option 3. Okay, so option 3 remains simplified. It's not too complicated, and I get to keep all of my hybrid equity and covered call funds. The trade-off here is that I give up the pure equity funds, including SCHD and VUG. But keep in mind that all of these ETFs are hybrid in nature, and JEPI, for example, is 80% equity. And XYLG is 50% the S&P 500. So that does give me the exposure I want to basic index growth. And maybe the other options are repetitive in that nature. But if it's not clear already, I want you guys to give me your thoughts in the comments down below. So again, as a quick recap, this is my current portfolio setup. Option 1 adds a good amount of complexity, but it's the most diversified. So I get to keep all of my income producing assets, and I have dedicated equity funds. Option 2 is much more simplified in nature. I have to pick one hybrid ETF and then one equity ETF within both branches. And then in option 3, I keep it simple, but I ditch the equity funds in exchange for my favorite covered call hybrid ETFs. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below which portfolio setup you think is best, or do you think something else is even better? Let me know in the comments. If you're still watching and enjoyed, I appreciate a like on the video. Go and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you guys in the next one.